Hello everyone, my name is Commander Ken. I'm the developer of BattleGroupVR. Today I'm going to tell you how to use the mission editor. It's built right into the game, so if you load up your battle group, you'll go to Options, and then Mission Editor. Give that a hold. Okay, so this is the main editor. On the main menu, we can create a new mission and we can load a mission. I've transferred all the gauntlet scenarios over to this template, so you can access them through here, and you can see how I have all the missions set up as a guideline to how you can set up your own missions. These aren't editable, but you can see how they're set up. So let's go ahead and make a new mission. There's no open world right now, so it's just gauntlet, so we'll make one of those. We'll call this test. I guess we'll go with an escort mission because it's super easy and straightforward, and everybody knows what an escort mission is. You can enable this if you don't want this mission to show up during your normal gauntlet scenarios, so the mission editor won't pull this mission randomly. So we'll leave that disabled because we don't care. So we'll create it. Now, to start things off, there are basically three types of nodes, or three types of data. There are presets, which is information that you need to have ahead of time to use. There are triggers, which are events that it will wait for, and there are actions that will be executed when those triggers fire. So, one of the built-in triggers is on sector load. So on sector load basically happens while you're in warp getting into a sector. So anything that you need to have in the sector when you arrive should happen here. So this is an escort mission. We need a cargo ship to protect. So we can start off with a fleet to put it in. A fleet is basically a commander that's in charge of a bunch of ships. So since we're not in charge of this cargo ship, it's going to do its own thing. It needs to have its own fleet. So we'll call this cargo fleet. And then we're going to assign it to the Imperium faction, because the player is allied to the Imperium faction and they'll fight everything else. So we can't have ourselves automatically shoot at the cargo ship, so it needs to be friendly. So we'll set this. Now, we need to do another preset called ship setup. This will be the cargo ship template. The ship setup basically holds all the information that you need when you spawn in ships. So for one ship class, if you leave this blank, it's going to use all the classes. But we don't want a dreadnought to pop up when we need to escort it. So we're going to limit it to just cargo ships. So we'll do cargo frigate and then maybe the bulk cruiser. So it will pick randomly between these two when it spawns. We don't want it to retreat, so if it takes damage, normally they'll run away, but we'll disable that, and we don't want it to capture either. We just need it to go straight to the escape point and not get distracted. We're going to leave the ship name blank. That will just generate a random name for it, and then for the fleet, we'll assign it to the cargo fleet that we made previously. And it's going to have its default equipment. If you turn this off, the ship will be blank. Basically, it's not going to have any weapons or anything like that. So we want to keep it to have its regular default setup. And we could give it a captain, which we don't have right now, so we'll ignore that. It's not invincible and is definitely targetable. Okay? It has full health, full shields, and we don't want it to drop salvage because we don't want to reward the player for blowing up the ship. So it's not going to give you anything. So let's go ahead and create that. And now we have that saved. So, on sector load, let's spawn in that ship. New action. Ship spawn. And we're going to call this spawn cargo ship. It's a one-time action. we needed to spawn the cargo template. It's need to spawn, basically appear in the map as opposed to warping in. So if you're creating ships during a scenario, you'll use warp in because then you'll have the warp in animation and all that stuff, so it doesn't just pop into existence. But since the player is in the loading screen right now, we can use spawn. Now, where do we want to spawn it? Great question. We should spawn this where the player spawns. So we're going to do a new preset. We're going to go player warp in point to specify where the player should spawn. And then we're going to call this starting location. Now we can put a vector 3 in here to specify an actual location, or to be easier, we can specify one of these presets. Now these are all basically just directionals off of the center point. So if we go north, if we click 100% north, it's going to be right on the map edge on the northern side. Now we don't want to have to travel all the way from there to the escape point, so let's go with 50% north. 0% would be the center of the map, essentially. And while we're at it, let's create another location point. And we'll call this escape point. And then we'll call this, or we'll put this at north-south, and then we'll go 50 south. And let's assign the cargo to spawn on our player location, starting location. It will spawn 5,000 meters somewhere within the starting location. Great. Now, if we right-click, we can assign it to the ship spawn. So on sector load, it will trigger the ship spawn. Now, we have our cargo ship to protect. We need some enemies to try to destroy the cargo ship. So let's create a new preset. We're going to use a rival task force. A rival task force is basically, it will spawn a fleet that will be equivalent to the player fleet. So we're going to call this enemy raiders. And it can spawn any ship, so go ahead. And its fleet, we'll have to create a fleet to assign it to. And here is the player fleet value multiplier. So a 1 is equal to the player. It should be an equal fleet. A 2, twice as strong. And a 0.5 is half as strong. So we want the player to have a good fight, so we'll give it a 1. So say you're spawning 3 fleets from 3 different locations, you can do like 0.3, for example, and together it will be 1. So try to keep it around 1. We want them to drop salvage because we should reward the player for blowing up the enemy. And you could also do a value offset. So if you want it to be as strong as a player, but give it an extra 500,000 or 50,000 strength, for example, that is where you would put that. And value and strength is based off the monetary value of the fleet. So let's create that. All right, so now it's complaining that the fleet is missing because we didn't make an enemy fleet yet. So we're going to do a new preset. We're going to add a fleet setup, and the faction is going to be these privateers, so they're pirates essentially. And we're going to call this enemy fleet. Create, and then we're going to assign it to our fleet here. Okay. New action. Let's create these enemies. Ship spawn, ship presets, enemy raiders. We're going to call this enemy spawn. And then where are we going to put them? We're going to put them at the starting, the escape point. All right, so on sector load, we have our cargo ship and we have our enemy. Now, another trigger is on mission update. This will happen once per second while the mission is enabled. So what do we need to do during the mission? we need to tell the cargo ship to get to the escape point, and we need to check for our victory conditions. So we'll do new action, order move cargo to escape point. It is not a one-time action because we need to repeatedly tell this every second. Otherwise, the ship's going to wander off or something like that. And then we need to assign it to our cargo ship. Now, you can either assign the fleet, which is everything inside of all the ships inside of the fleet. So if you had multiple cargo ships, that's what you would use. But since we're only spawning one, we might as well just use the reference that we spawned. And then where we want it to go is the escape point. All right, so every second it's going to tell the cargo ship to get to the escape point. Now, if it reaches the escape point, that's a victory for the player. So we need to know how far the ship is from the escape point. So we're going to go new preset, track distance. We're going to track the cargo ship against the escape point, and we'll call this distance to escape, cargo distance to escape. All right, so now that we're measuring the distance, we need to check that distance whether or not it's lower than a value. So we can go new trigger, if variable condition, and we'll use that variable that we just made, the cargo distance, and then we'll call it cargo ship has reached exit point. And then if it's less than, I don't know, maybe 5,000, give it some wiggle room, 3,000, then we can do something. If it's true, it'll execute these events. If it's false, it'll execute these events. So you have an if-else statement here. So if it's reached the exit point, the player pretty much wins. So new action. We're going to end mission, complete, victory. And then we'll just tie these together. So every second, it will check the variable to see if it's less than 3,000, the distance. If so, end the mission in victory. So that's victory. So for defeat, the cargo ship would be destroyed. So new trigger, if ship destroyed, we can add our cargo ship. And then cargo ship destroyed. And then that will lead to, duplicate that, to failure. And then link that up to the main drive. Okay, so that's pretty much it. This is the bare bones that you need to make the mission work. It creates you a ship to protect. It creates an enemy to fight. It will check whether or not the ship has reached the point to win, or if it's destroyed, then you lose. And then it moves the ship, every frame. Not every frame, but every second. That's it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things that goes into this that makes for good mission design, and that's like the fluff for the player. So we kind of need to tell the player what to do and then guide them through it, because otherwise it's very easy to get confused. So to do that, we have another trigger called on sector enter. Yeah, here we go. This will happen when the player actually arrives into the sector. And usually this is where I tell the player what's going on. So we can create a character to do so. So let's create a new character. We'll call this ship captain. We'll name him Vendor Man. And he is a traveling merchant. And then we'll pick a portrait for him. Let's call him this guy. Why not? And then we pick a voice for him. There's a bunch of voices. You can preview them here.
Voice interface online, ready to receive input.
Sure, no, why not? Why don't we use Barry? So we'll use Barry. Okay, create. All right, so now that we have the character, we can actually have him talk. So new action, dialog window. We'll go with this mission intro. One-time action. We're going to use our character. And then we say what we want to say. That are about to steal my shit. Please help me get to the warp point. All right, and then we can cache the audio. It will generate it to be used to play back to the player later.
Thank God you're here. There are some hooligans down the street that are about to steal all my shit. Please help me get to the warp point.
Okay. And you can regenerate by just clicking it again, basically.
Thank God you're here. There are some hooligans down the street that are about to steal all my shit. Please help me get to the warp point.
All right. Now, in a dialog box, you can have choices, so the player can, click A, B, C, or whatever to change up the mission if you want to. But since we're just doing a simple message, the player doesn't need to interact with it at all. We just leave this blank, and it will automatically close. So, mission intro. Tie that to on sector enter. So the moment we warp in, this thing's going to pop up and tell us, hey, we need help, protect the transport. Another thing we need to do is update the mission objectives so you can read what you're going to do. So that is set mission update objective. So we're going to call it protect the cargo ship. One-time action, and the key can be anything. We just use this key to update it later. So if we need to change the whatever it displays, just remember to use the same key. I'll just call it M1. And then it goes here. So when you warp in, mission intro, you get a new objective to follow. Now, when on mission defeat and mission fail, we should also tell the player what happened. So let's duplicate our dialog box, and then we'll add a new trigger called on mission victory. There we go. So if it's victory, it'll call this. You can tie this directly to here too if you want to, but I'd like to keep it nice and tidy by tying it directly to the mission victory. Victory message. And then we'll say something like, thanks for the help. Going to get rich. Go get rich now. See ya.
We made it! Thanks for the help. I'm going to go get rich now. Sire!
Oh, God. See you later.
We made it! Thanks for the help. I'm going to go get rich now. See you later.
All right. Save that. Then new action. We have defeat. Nope. New trigger on mission defeat. We're going to copy this. This is the fail message. Damn. I'm going to die now. Who's going to sell all my stuff? You suck.
Damn, I'm going to die now. Who's going to sell all my stuff? You suck.
Okay, good enough. On mission defeat. Here. Now, there's one more way the mission can end, and that's via abort. So if the player leaves the sector, the mission will automatically fail. So we need to consider that as well. So new trigger on mission abort. There we go. What? You're leaving me to fend for myself? Don't you want money? This is the abort message.
What? You're leaving me to fend for myself? Don't you want money?
Okay, and that abort is that. Okay, so yeah, so now we've added little blurbs, so the player knows what's going on. You could be more complicated and add, like, you know, if the ship's life is at 50%, he'll say, hey, I'm about to die, come help me, stuff like that. So this is basically the basics, and we can go and test it now by going up here in this launch area. And then you can set how deep you want to be in the gauntlet. The deeper you are, the harder the enemies are. And then a test fleet to fly against. Now these come from the fleet editor in the lobby. I'll show you that later. But you can just construct a fleet with, you know, free money and then save it for later. So you can select one of those fleets that I've made before, and then you just click launch.
Thank God you're here. There are some hooligans down the street that are about to steal all my shit. Please help me get to the warp point.
Alright.
Tracking unknown contact.
Neutral carrier identified.
So as you can see, the dialogue popped up, the objectives updated, and then you're off to do the mission. If you notice on my screen, if you have debugging enabled, you have these buttons here. So the debug menu will basically show all the entries in your mission, so you can see what they're actually doing, as well as a mission log to see what each of the nodes are doing. So very useful. You can also return back to the mission editor straight from here. With that, it also comes with these developer tools. You can pause, play, fast forward up to 5-10 times, so you can super speed through the game to help you debug, as well as some of these tools like, you know, kill all enemies, kill a random enemy, toggle invincibility, reset your cooldowns, kill an ally, that kind of thing. Here's another way to get back to the editor, but if you go back to the main menu, you can enable that right here on debug mode on. So yeah, that's pretty much the mission editor. Let me know in the Discord if you like to see different nodes to expand, you know, what the mission editor can do. I've just been using it to try to convert the gauntlet stuff over to something that everybody can use. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. This is Commander Ken, signing off.